What's up, everyone? My name is Jet. Welcome back to this episode of Inside Lines. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Let's first kick off with Kyle Larson, who put on a whooping on the field. Friday, nearly won the truck race, finished second to Chandler Smith, who, when he's not winning races on Sunday, is not giving a shit about his kids on the weekdays. Won the Xfinity race on Saturday, absolutely obliterated the field, and did the same thing on Sunday. But he was on Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast, and he made some very interesting comments that caused quite a stir.
In Xfinity, I do get motivated, and this is going to come across like very cocky, but I want to embarrass them, honestly. I want to embarrass NASCAR a little bit because they just don't let Cup guys run anymore. And the kids, they probably think they're in a good spot, and they don't know where the bar is really at. So I like to go run those Xfinity races and just get 10-second leads to let them realize that they've got a lot of room to improve. And I think that's only better for our sport. You know, when those young guys can compete with Cup guys, they're better suited for the Cup Series once they get there. Yes, I want to smash the field when I run Xfinity.
I love that.
That's motivating for me for sure.
Hey, you know what? Listen. I guess this is viewed as a hot take because a lot of people in the comments are saying, oh, wow, how very arrogant of him and all that stuff. Nah, fair play. Larson, number one, he deserves to say stuff like that. I mean, when the level of his talent and his accolades, he deserves to be a little bit cocky. Number two, is he really wrong? I mean, think about it. If you are a racing driver, I'd be more concerned if you didn't have that mentality. I don't care if you're racing the Cup Series, Truck Series, Xfinity Series, or a local short track. You should want to whoop the field. I don't care if I'm like a 7-time champion, right? And I race in a local short track. I want to whoop the field. So I agree with his mentality. And I think he's not wrong here when he says that these Xfinity guys, they think they're in a good spot. I do think that there is this form of entitlement in the Xfinity Series where they think they're better than everyone else. They think they're all that when really they don't know squat. So having Larson come down to Xfinity Series and really show some of these young drivers and be like, hey, listen, you may be good, but you got a lot to learn. You are not there yet. You are not ready just yet. So I agree wholeheartedly with his comments. Now, there are some people that push back that are saying, listen, what about the Xfinity-owned teams that are just there trying to get by? They're not there to try and show up. They're just there trying to make ends meet. And I understand that. But again, you also have to think of it from a racing driver's perspective. If you don't have that mentality, you shouldn't be racing. I find that very hard to believe. If you are a racing driver, it should not matter the series that you're in or the level of the series that you're in. Whichever race you compete in, you should want to not only win, you should want to put a whooping on the field because, I mean, you should think, right? Oh, I'm better, right? I'm the best racing driver. I've won 30 some more races. I'm a former Cup champion. I've done all of this stuff. I want to show these people who's boss. They think they're all that. No. I'm here to show you who the man is. Hey, no issue with what Larson says. Now, yes, he may say some things that are not popular. He may say some things that are not right. Considering the date I'm recording this video, I think y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. But on a serious note, there are some things that Larson says may come off as his, personality being a blunt person. But in this situation, I think he's right. I think that's the right mentality you should have. And especially I think in the Xfinity Series, with how some of these young drivers are racing, I feel like that is the right mentality to have. So, hey, no issue with what Larson's saying. Let's wrap it up with more talk about Sunday's race. One of the worst Bristol races. I think we can all assume that. And judging by the reaction, at least I saw on Jeff Gluck, 80%, at least at the time I was recording, 80% viewed this as a no, that this was not a good race. Now, I put up a poll and I said, did what we see at Bristol make you think there is a track problem or a car problem? 5% of you said that this was a track problem. Next Gen, including the tires, had 60% of the votes, while 35% said it's a mixture of both. Now, there are some people that gave either one side by saying, listen, it's a track problem. Some people were saying, listen, it's a Goodyear problem, or it's a NASCAR problem. The next gen problem. And there are some that have been in the middle. I want to point out one comment by Irvin Alvarado 44. And he said in this comment under my poll, he said that it's a little bit of both. The progressive banking was, while nice to see two wide racing, the old Bristol was that one line fight pre-repave. Is it possible to get that back? Maybe SMI does whatever it wants. Car-wise, it needs horsepower. Increase, assuming it works for passing and making the cars harder to drive. Tires to wear a little more and also depend on weather, which in this case, it was warmish and did not wear out as much. Now, given that said, you're in two camps. Appreciate great racing from Larson, or which there was more fight for the lead with comers and goers, along with bean banging of cars within reason, unless, well, tempers flare. And I do think that there's what he said is correct. I think we should appreciate Larson's dominance, but it's different. A lot of people are using this as a cop-out, as like, oh, you're only saying it's bad because Larson dominated. No. And this is an issue I have with a lot of industry execs. A lot of the industry executives, either drivers or crew members or whatever, people that are in the community are trying to give NASCAR a free pass by saying, oh, Bristol has always been like this. Why are you complaining about that? Or, oh, you're just saying that because Larson dominated. No, we're not saying that's because Larson dominated, because it was almost impossible to pass. The fact that the first place car was running about the same lap times as the 25th place car is an issue. The fact that Blaney, on God knows how old tires, was able to stay out for as long as he did without really any real pressure is a problem. Now, is this a Bristol issue? Because ever since the repave in 2007, when we went to progressive banking, the races have dipped in quality. We've still had some really good races. I look at the 2012 Bristol Night Race as one of the best races in modern Bristol history. Definitely 2016 and 2021, Bristol racing had been consistently good. Maybe there was a down period in 2019 when he went to that high downforce package, but for the most part, 2016 and 2021 had been consistently good, except for the All-Star race in 2020. That was horrendous. But it has been more inconsistent in terms of great racing quality. We've seen not as many consistently good Bristol races as we have seen in the pre-repave of 2007. And even though this weekend did produce three pretty dull races, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, 3 different cars, 3 different tires, 3 different track conditions, 3 different PJ1 compounds, all that stuff. Everything was different and it all produced relatively the same stuff. If it was just Bristol, then we could fall under the umbrella of, oh, it's a track problem. And I do believe that Bristol, to a degree, has some fault. But the fact of the matter is that this next gen, in its 4th year at the moment, has not been good at all on the short tracks. While we have made some big improvement with the tires, there is still a major issue. The quality of short track racing with the next gen is so much worse than even the Gen 6 era. It's so much worse. So I think we can't just say, oh, it's a Bristol issue. We can't just say that, all right? Martinsville, although was better, still not great. It wasn't good. Like that's still an issue. We would only be saying if it's a track issue if we weren't having to dread Richmond, if we weren't having to dread Martinsville coming up later on, if we weren't having to dread North Wilkesboro coming up. Every single short race in the Cup Series has been bad in the next gen era. So we cannot say this is a track issue. This is a car issue. Or at least I think it's a car problem that is the main issue. I do believe we have a car, tire, and a track problem. You look at a track like Miami, right? It's a great racetrack. So the issues with the next gen are masked because of a good racetrack. Bristol exposed the worst out of everything. A bad car, bad tire on a not so good track, you get a recipe for disaster. So all 3 things need to be addressed. I mean, it is disappointing to go to a track like Bristol, a track that can hold 160,000 people. You look back at archival footage of years past, before 2010, of sellouts. I mean, Coliseum, to its name, sold out to the brink. To go from that to now you see more bare aluminum, to go from that to now see so many pockets of bare aluminum seating just scattered all over the racetrack. It is possible, but there needs to be a collaborative effort on NASCAR, Goodyear, and SMI, specifically on Bristol, in order to fix these changes. Now, let's shift over to strictly next gen. Is it possible to fix some of this? Again, yes, horsepower. We keep talking about it. It is horsepower. Horsepower is the name of the game. Remember, it is possible to convince NASCAR's mind. When we did this whole thing back in October of 2021, which, by the way, I should remind y'all, that was the first time there was a first organized test at a mile and a half, was a couple months before the start of the 2022 season, if you can believe that the first time that the next gen test was ever tested with multiple cars on an intermediate track was 2 or 3 months before the season began, which is just unbelievable and a whole nother can of worms. But we were originally going to run 510 horsepower. And then the drivers convinced NASCAR, please, dear God, do not run this package. That's how bad it was. That's how horrible it was. Then we went to 670. Again, I've said this before. We have heard all OEMs say that we can go up to 750 like this, like no problem. Another issue with the next gen cars is how it's built. With the underbody of the car, which is where all the downforce are being produced and is also the most expensive part of the car, the way how it's produced or how it's set up is set up like NASCAR 15 Talladega style, where this is like this, where the back end is on the ground and the front end is kind of pointing up in the air. The problem with that is that when you're behind traffic and you're in dirty air, it's already tilted like this. All that air is just gonna make your car handle 10 times worse. Okay, so then why not just offset that? Why not bring the nose down? Well, the problem with that is, number one, teams don't want to get the underbody damaged because it is such a key aerodynamic part and it is super expensive to replace. Also, what happens, at least according to Denny Hamlin on his Action Detrimental podcast, he mentioned that when they tried to do that during that Charlotte test back in 2021, it worked better during traffic, but when you're out by yourself, when you're out in clean air, because nothing is being pressured on the front end of the car, it makes your car uncontrollably loose. So I hope maybe that, considering how smart the teams are and how much knowledge we have with the next gen car, that maybe if you do make a test where you pinch the front nose down to the ground, that with the extensive knowledge and maybe some tweaks to the next gen car, you can make it work. I do believe still wholeheartedly that the next gen car can be a great thing. It can be. It's just that we have to tell NASCAR, well, I should say we, but the drivers, they need to tell NASCAR that this form of racing is not going to work. NASCAR is so stuck in their ways that they need this mindset of the eye test. It has to pass the eye test. They want the perception of it looks good on camera. Like, oh, they're close. That means the racing is good. But in reality, they can't actually pass. I know they also mentioned an OEM. They want to lower the horsepower to bring in an OEM. But again, that kind of doesn't make sense when you hear about the engine build still not being the same in 10 plus years. So I don't know. I don't see how that's going to bring in a new OEM when the costs have not changed in about a decade or so. So don't get that mindset. I do believe more in the eye test and how we want these cars to be, close together. We want more pack-ish type of racing. That's why we had this whole restrictor plate package at the All-Star race in 2018 that sent us down this path to begin with. It's just NASCAR being stuck in their own ways. That's really all it is. You can only do so much with the tire. I'm not saying the track is explicit to any type of criticism. It is not. Bristol has gone down in quality, although I think we are looking at the wrong thing. I've seen way too many people focus on Bristol when, yes, Bristol is an issue, but that should not be the one we're focusing on. If this was just Bristol, then fine. We can put the blame on Bristol, but we have seen issues with this track at other short tracks, at the rest of the short tracks. We've seen it have issues at Martinsville, have issues at North Wilkesboro, have issues at Richmond. We've also seen it starting to have issues at some intermediates, like at Las Vegas, for example. It's starting to become too aero dependent. We're starting to see it be bad on the super speedways. The racing is not that great on the super speedways. We're starting to see a decrease in racing quality everywhere. That's the issue. And I don't like that we're the industry, the people in the industry are trying to push all criticism aside. It says, oh, you're just complaining on how, because it's Larson dominated, or you're just complaining out because, you just think that Bristol was all that, but it was always like this. No, do not insult the fans' intelligence. To the industry, people of NASCAR, people on the Sirius XM NASCAR radar that are saying, oh, they don't like it because there was not enough bumping and banging. No, that's not it at all. We understand dominance can happen, and we should celebrate that. We should. The reason why, though, it's not perceived the same as, though, like in Formula One, is because we know that it's gimmicky, if that makes sense. We know that, listen, the only reason why that Larson's able to get out this lead, to get out to this form of a lead, to have this many laps led under his belt, is because the cars cannot pass, because it's so difficult to pass, because the tires don't wear out, because everybody's running the same speed, because everybody has the same package, because drivers cannot do anything. It is not being a nostalgic merchant. Anyone that says that, shut up. It has nothing to do with the nostalgic merchant, why people are saying that Bristol sucks now, or they're saying that this race sucked. It's not because of that. It's not because of that, oh, people Bristol was always this beanbagging. No, we know that domination can happen, but we know that this form of domination is not the right way. If it makes sense, there is a difference in the Jeff Gordon domination, when he was winning all those races and leading all these laps in a race, than domination we see in today's NASCAR, right? When we saw William Byron led from lap 1 to lap 268, if this was in an era where you could pass, you could challenge, then yes, that'd be great. Keep in mind, when Byron last week in Darlington led all those laps, that was the most laps anyone has ever led to start a cup race from start to finish, lap 1 to lap 268. That was the most since Jeff Burton in New Hampshire of 2000. The race where it was a restrictor plate race and Burton led wire to wire. Should we be celebrating that? No. It might be a great accomplishment, yes, but when you kind of look under the surface, it's like, wait a minute, this is a problem. This is an issue. The next gen can be fixed. And I will end this off by saying with this. Again, the next gen can be solved. It can. I believe that this next gen car is capable of performing well on the super speedways, short tracks, road courses, speedways, everywhere. I believe in that. The problem is that NASCAR created a rush product. I mean, John Probst told Denny Hamlin, when Denny Hamlin asked him a question, is this car ready to be raced? John Probst said yes. Turns out he was wrong. This car is not. And now we're playing catch up. And I see a shift in the industry, especially this weekend, where we're starting to blame tracks than the cars. It's kind of like what I'm seeing in F1. A lot of people were blaming Suzuka for the reason why the race was so horrible in the Japanese Grand Prix. That, oh, it's the track. No. I mean, yes, the track did go through a repave, but we're missing the real issue. The car. The track can only do so much. The track is the track, right? The car is everything, all right? You could have a bad racetrack, but if you have a great car, you can mask those issues. It won't be perfect, but you can mask it. And that's why we need to focus so much on this car. A great car can mask a lot of issues, but we cannot be focusing so much on the track. We cannot be focusing so much on tires, even though Goodyear, I feel like, again, they can do a step more in terms of making these tires much softer. They can only do so much. You know, they can only go so far. It seems as though that NASCAR takes their foot off the gas and is like, yeah, we're not going to do anything. We're going to take a step back. Goodyear, you solve it for us. Help us out of the mess that we created. And that is just not fair, especially when Goodyear is already pumping tens of millions of dollars per year to become the official tire of NASCAR. Now you want them to basically kind of cover your asses and create the mess that you created. And that's not fair. I still have hope. I still have hope that the next gen can be a great race car. I still have hope that Bristol can once again seat in 160,000. Maybe I'm delusional, but I am optimistic. I believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there is a possibility, there is a chance we can get into the promised land and see great racing, great tracks. But in order for that to happen, the people in charge, honestly, need to get their head out of their asses and be real.